AVC Big Star 1000 with another installment of Revolutions, the ongoing series where I showcase what I've been spinning in the past few days. I hope you enjoy those. Sometimes I do ask myself, who watches this, and because 30 or so minutes of babbling from me, I don't know, I wouldn't watch me, but if you do, you're welcome. So still firmly in lockdown. Been in lockdown for about 3 months now, like serious lockdown, and the earliest we can get out of this is the 23rd of November, if you can imagine. So there's still 2 months to go, and it's only if we have 0 to 5 cases per day for 2 weeks in a row. That's never going to happen. Yeah, I haven't visited a record store since July, I think. It's a first world problem, I get it. On the plus side, I'm now on holidays, school holidays. As a teacher, it's great because I don't have to spend my whole day in front of the computer doing remote learning like I did for the past term. So I use my time to play more records and read. I mean, I always read. The book I'm reading at the moment is this philosophy book by Alain de Botton, Essays in Love, where he dissects the process of love through the lens of philosophy. And I love de Botton. He's a great writer. You don't care, but I'm telling you anyway, because I want to. And so reading, doing things around the house, and obviously playing lots of music, and that's what you're here for. And so lately I've been a little bit obsessed with revisiting some of Eno's ambient records, and just Brian Eno in general. Brian Eno is the artist that I have most of in my collection, according to Discogs, at least 75 Eno related pieces in my record collection. That is like solo records, collaborations with Cluster and Fripp and Laraji, and appearances on records by Genesis, Robert Wyatt, production jobs, Talking Heads, U2, David Bowie, Ultravox, so many things. I mean, I'd say Eno is the most important rock musician in my musical experience, I think. But I digress. Let me show you some records that I've been playing. And so revisiting some of the ambient records. This one, number 4 on Land from 1982, is an absolutely beautiful, ethereal, dark, sort of brooding record. Features the likes of Laraji and Daniel Lanois and other people, Bill Laswell. And the last track, to give you a good idea about what this sounds like, Dunwich Beach, Autumn 1960, is a really worthy listen, if you want just a sample. And some say this is the best of the series. I mean, obviously the ambient one, the music for airports, is the high watermark in ambient music, so they say, but not for me. For me, my favorite one is this one, Ambient number 2, The Plateaus of Mirror, which is the collaboration between Harold Budd and Brian Eno. And on this you have the subtle, elegant, understated piano playing of Harold Budd, which is like a ray of sunshine through this music. I really thoroughly highly recommend this over any other of the ambient series. I mean, Apollo is really good too, but this for me is, I don't have this on vinyl, I've got this only on CD, but the CD's just escaped the box, doesn't matter. I think with I'll say something vaguely controversial, but I think with ambient records, the ambient records, you're almost better off having them on a format where it's not going to wear out, or you're not going to have surface noise, or because these are so delicate, and the moment they're overplayed and you've got a little bit of, like my copy of Music for Airports, for example, has surface noise on it, and it's not enjoyable as much as it should be. Another one that I've been loving is this one. I'll just take it out of the box because the reflection would be it's Thursday Afternoon from 1985, I think, maybe 85, correct. This is a 61-minute track where nothing much happens. It's sort of like, it is really the definition of ambient. It's just sort of slow moving. There's very slight variations, and it's great to read to. You don't, it doesn't sort of disturb your, and it's precisely what Brian Eno was thinking when he conceived the idea of ambient, like a painting where sometimes you look at it and you're compelled to look at your painting. Sometimes you don't look at it because it's just there in the background. I think Thursday Afternoon matches that very well. And not ambient, but I've been drawn back to his first solo record, Here Come the Warm Jets, which out of his early solo records, these 4 great opening solo records that he had, that and Taking Tiger Mountains by Strategy, Before and After Science, and Another Green World, is probably my least favorite, but it's because it's sort of steeped still in this glammy kind of, but it's still a fantastic record. On Some Faraway Beach and Dead Things Don't Talk, Driving Me Backwards, such great songs, Babies on Fire, obviously. I really do love this record, but I love it less than, say, the other ones, for my own personal reasons. And whilst I'm talking about ambient and electronic music, I've been mad playing this amazing quartet record called Pause. So Pause is Fortet's second record from 2001. In my opinion, it is up there with his best work. Rounds obviously is his most famous, most celebrated work, and it is a great album. I'm a very, very big fan of There Is Love in You from 2010, and I think this goes in that kind of trilogy. Pause is absolutely excellent. I highly recommend this record, and I've got it on CD. And you know what? Again, it's kind of one of these things where an uninterrupted play of some records, you don't have to flip it, that enhances the experience, in my opinion. And I mean, if you're a vinyl purist, then good luck to you. I'm not. I think vinyl is fantastic, but it's got its own limitations. The CD format is actually quite good. I'm sorry to break it to you. It was a new record from this year by a band from Arizona called Trees Speak. This was issued by Soul Jazz Records in London. And the hype sticker says it all. New krautrock meets post-punk and psych rock from Arizona for fans of Cluster, Tangerine Dream, Can Noi, Silver Apples, and early Kraftwerk. Yeah, pretty much. This is like a modern Noi or Tangerine Dream record, very sort of synthy, kosmische Musik, like really driving kind of motoric beats, and I love this. I think it's a great record. So the album is called Ohms, OHMS, like the measuring unit. Yeah, very good, from 2020. And since I'm on krautrock-ish, I revisited Yatha Sidra's A Meditation Mass. Yatha Sidra was a band from Freiburg in Germany, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong. And this is maybe their only album, I don't even know. It's got the die cut. This is a reissue that I picked up, you know, a few years ago, 2010. Look at this. Yeah, 2010. I've had this since. The record is, you know, sort of like meditation. Well, it's called Meditation Mass, of course. It's sort of a trance-inducing kind of cosmic, you know, a sort of Indian flavored record. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. It's a beautiful. I've lost my words there. I think you can listen to it. It's a really, like, you know, long, kind of beautiful, expansive tracks. Okay, let me continue with some classic minimalist music by Steve Reich. This is octet music for a large ensemble violin phase on ECM from 1980. Obviously, we have here a large band, a large ensemble, featuring, you know, I think all these guys are from they're all from, it was recorded in New York, so I'm presuming they're all New York musicians. And, you know, I mean, if you're familiar with the work of Steve Reich, this is one of his best known, best loved work. I mean, it's not quite up there with music for 18 musicians, obviously, because that's just really another world altogether, but it's a great, sort of, yeah, repetitive, drony, repetitive piece of music, but, you know, that's what minimalism is all about. And I would recommend that you take a listen to it. And I'm doing a little segue with a new record just come out this month, I think, in September. Mammal Hands. Mammal Hands are a UK jazz trio from Norwich in England, and they're made of two brothers, Jordan and Nick and Jordan Smart. And so here we've got a trio of drums slash tabla, sax and clarinet, electronics and piano. And what you've got here is a mixture of this is why I'm doing the segue, minimalist music, you know, a la Steve Reich, Terry Riley. You know, you've got this kind of backbone of really repetitive, drony kind of music, mixed with jazz and a little bit of Indian classical music thrown in. This is a fantastic record. I think it's their third album. It's on Gondwana Records, which is the label that put out Matthew Halsall, for example. I suggest you take a listen to songs like Versus Shapes or Floating World or Late Bloomer. There's some really amazing, you know, like, yeah, very minimal jazzy grooves on this. It's very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. In a completely different style, having been obsessed lately by the Talking Heads, as you know, I mean, if you watched the last two installments, I was reading the book. I was compelled to revisit the Modern Lovers debut record, a classic, a high watermark in the story of American punk, recorded in 1972, produced by John Cale, and only released in 1976, way ahead of its time, really, in many ways, and still ahead of its time. I mean, I think this record shines with its, you know, inventive brilliance every time I play it. There's not a bad song on this. So this Jonathan Richman obviously is the vocalist, guitarist and composer of this. He has this kind of, you know, he's a bit like, it's a little bit in his delivery like Lou Reed in some ways, you know. You can see that they drew a lot of influence from the Velvet Underground, clearly. Ernie Brooks on bass, and obviously Jerry Harrison, who's the guitar player and keyboards player in the Talking Heads. That was his first band. And I mean, you know, Pablo Picasso, Astral Plane, She Cracked, what a song. My favorite though is Hospital. When you get out of the hospital tonight, let me back into your life. You know, I don't, you know, I can't stand what you do, but I'm in love with your eyes. It's so perverse, this whole thing. Yes, The Modern Lovers, an excellent, you know, proto-punk. I mean, it's just a rock record. Let's not put too many labels on this. It's like when I hear about television being labeled punk. Where? How? Television? Yeah. Art rock if you want. Punk? No, I don't think so. Devo, the band from Pittsburgh, maybe? Led by Mark Mothersbaugh, and one of my favorite American post-punk bands, and this is the Be Stiff EP. It's called Be Stiff because it's on Stiff Records, which is a UK label responsible for the likes of Ian Duran, the Blockheads, Madness, Nick Lowe, so many more. And this was an album that was specially released for Stiff in the UK. It's a fantastic collection of almost the best songs. Joko Homo, their cover version of Satisfaction, Mongoloid, just really great. Are we not men? We are Devo. I don't know why, but lately I've been compelled to revisit this record by Paul McCartney and Wings, Wildlife. I think it's a very underrated record in the in Paul McCartney's discography. Nobody ever talks about Wildlife, and I tend to think it's one of his best efforts. So this is a record made and recorded in 1971, around the time of Ram, which is my favorite McCartney record, and that's why I think there's still a little bit of the spirit of Ram in this, and I'm in love with the title track Wildlife. I just take a listen to it. I mean, if anything, it starts with Mambo, which is really quite irritating as a song. I mean, I will say that. But the album as a whole is very cohesive. It's quite, if you get past that first song, just get past it, just let it run, you know. You might even find yourself enjoying it. At times I do. But I really like this record. 1971. It was a good time in post Beatles, you know, between that and Plastic Ono Band, and you know, All Things Must Pass is from 1970. So it retains that kind of, like, you know, energy from post breakup Beatles. Here is a brand new record by a Somali musician, Gordon Kwang, and it's called Unity. I love the old school font and you know, arrangements that they've designed, that they've chosen there. But it was released a couple of months ago or something, or a month ago, here in Australia, because this guy Gordon Kwang is a Somali refugee to Australia. So and it's his first record he's made in Australia since fleeing his country in 2014, and it was like ethnic persecution. And I think, reading the story, his wife is still over there in Somalia, and he you know, he was going to get killed, so basically he had to flee. And this music is a mix of traditional Somali music. He plays an instrument, sort of a crossover between a harp and a guitar, called a thum or a tom. I don't know, T-H-O-M. Don't know how you pronounce it. I've never heard it said. I've only read it. And you know, kind of like a Somali kora, if you will. And you know, you can, I mean, obviously I don't speak the language or understand the language, but there's this rage, and his joy in the music as well. I really, really love this record. For a modern African record, it's highly recommended. It's just beautiful. And if you can get it, then, you know, by any means, it's actually really quite good. Somali. And Golden Coin had a career in Somalia. I think he released about 10 records before he released this one. Another release from this year, which picked up a few months ago, but revisited, Tamish and Youssef Days, you know, with What Kind of Music on Blue Notes. Really, really, really fantastic neo-soul, future jazz record, featuring the likes of Freddie Gibbs and Rocco Palladino on it. Love the artwork, love the music. Very highly recommended. Really, yeah, funky neo-soul. You know, really, really groovy. Lots of really beautiful keys and so on and so forth. Revisited this Flying Lotus album, You're Dead, which came out quite a few years ago. 2000 and what? I'm thinking 2013 or 12 or 13, I can't remember. It was a while back. And it's on Warp Records. I love the artwork. I think the artwork is sublime. You know, it's really kind of, it's gruesome but beautiful at the same time. I love these beads of gold everywhere. It feels like almost like an Indian mat rug, you know, with all the mirrors on it. I will say though that it should be one record. I mean, some of these sides have got more dead wax than actual music on them, which is bizarre. But it should have been compressed into one record, and it would have flowed better. When I play this, I find it frustrating that you play one side and then it's already finished. You have to flip it. There's no sequence. Hence, probably this would sound better. Would be way better on CD. You've got a mixture of, you know, jazz, electronics, you know, hip hop. It's kind of it's a sort of a hybrid. But Flying Lotus obviously specializes in more in sort of electronic music, IDM. So it's a jazzy IDM record. But I don't know. It's missing something for me. I like it, but I don't love it. Continuing with a French progressive pop classic. A record you could put in the same wheelhouse as Histoire de Melody Nelson, my favorite record, or La Mort d'Orient by Gérard Manset. I've talked about those records. There's a progressive pop Gimme 10 on my channel if you want to know more. It's more detail. Or things like Metronomy by Nino Ferrer. Or, you know, there's a few of those really great orchestral, psychedelic, progressive, poppy records, you know, and they're all concept albums, and this is no exception. This is Guy Skornik, Paul Powers, and Louis Powers. You know, so this is four Powers. Louis Powers was a French writer who co-wrote in 1960 a classic sort of sci-fi conspiracy theory book called The Morning of the Magicians. It was well known in France at the time. I have not read it myself, but you know, it deals with themes like lost civilizations, lost worlds, flying saucers, things like Easter Island. There's a song here called L'Île de Pâques, you know, which is Easter Island basically, and the album obviously is dedicated to the book. In fact, at the time, two records, there's another French classic by a band called Hyra, which was named The Morning of the Magicians, and was a direct result of the book. This is, yeah, kind of, you know, it's dedicated to the writer of the book, and the other record I'm talking about, which you can't get anywhere because it's just really, really rare, is about the book, but you know, apart from the concept here, you know, it's a great orchestral pop record. Highly recommend it. I think you'd like it. I don't know where I've said all this, but you know, heck, why not? I'll continue with some French grooves here, and Luckily, recently, there's been a slew of Shen Noir reissues. Shen Noir, a band formed in Avignon in the south of France, in the Théâtre du Shen Noir, which is a theatre in Avignon, which is, still exists. A few years, I think in 2015, I went to Avignon and I stood outside the theatre. It's still there. And the band was, it's interesting because Avignon, which is a beautiful city in the south of France, is they have a very famous theatre festival every year. So that's why this is all kind of linked to that performance arts. And Shen Noir were a band who fused basically avant-garde jazz, experimental music, spoken word poetry, a little bit of Middle Eastern influences. And this is the second record, Orphée 2000 from 1976. And I kept the hype sticker on it because hype stickers are sometimes quite ridiculous, but French spiritual jazz holy grail, well, they love to put things like this, holy grail. I mean, how much do you hate that phrase, really? I mean, in a way, I think it's the most overused phrase in the whole of record collecting. Holy grail, what does it mean? Think Brigitte Fontaine meets Alice Coltrane via the Middle East, whatever. So this is also a concept album about the story of Orpheus, a Greek myth, which you possibly heard about. And it's a suite of songs. And yes, you've got this spoken word. A knowledge of French on this would probably be a bonus because you can follow the story. But it's still beautiful music, and I don't know how easily you could obtain this. This was re-released this year for I think for Record Store there in France, but it's something that was on my one list, impossible to get normally, and I had to jump on it, order it, and get it. I got it a few months ago, but it's something that I play quite a bit, and this was reissued by Heavenly Sweetness, Parisian label, and this is another reissue, Shen Noir. It's one of the early singles called Miss Madonna, same band, and it's probably the finest moment on record. I mean, it's a great mixture again of avant-garde and experimental music, and jazzy grooves. And this was, however, released by Souffle Continu, if that focuses. Both of them highly recommended, but obviously I really, collect, French music from the 70s, and it's something that I've been interested in. If you're a casual listener of that sort of stuff, it's probably not necessary to you. And a little segue to not a French jazz record, but a record that was recorded in Paris in 1978 or 1979. And I love this record. I can't tell you how much I love this. I love this. It's just such a great Afro jazz record, Afro jazz, spiritual jazz record. It's a trio. So Cheikh Tidiane Fall is from Senegal. Bobby Few is American, and Joe Maka is from Guinea in Africa. And so it's a convergence of three different musicians in Paris. And these people were all involved with, people like Steve Lacy and, all this BYG actual scene that was in Paris at the time. They all played on these things. Cheikh Tidiane Fall plays percussion, Bobby Few plays the piano, and Joe Maka plays the sax, and there's some vocals. This is freaking fantastic Afro jazz, spiritual jazz from France. I don't know what to compare it to, but just take a listen to Sunflowers, the opening track. I'm in love with this record. I couldn't recommend a record any higher than this. And so This is quite hard to source. It's hard to come by as an original. So this is a recent reissue on a label from Paris called Comos. And whilst I got this, I got also this one. This is also on Comos. See there. There. And this is a French band called the Gritness Acoustronics. I can't, this is something that you can't say. Is it meant to be said? The music of Don Cherry. So the album is called Mahakali, the music of Don Cherry. So what Comos, the label, has done is they've released 4 records as tributes to jazz musicians by young French bands. So there's a one on Don Cherry, there's another one on Henri Texier, which I've bought. I'll probably show it to you next week or something. There's one on Randy Weston, and there's one on, it escapes me now, you can look it up. Anyway, those records have got a similar kind of, you know, like they've used a similar aesthetics for each one of the records. They're all beautiful to look at, but this one is not just beautiful to look at, it's amazing. It's a mixture of electronics and jazz and Afro-centric kind of grooves. It focuses on the music by Don Cherry from the late 70s, early 80s. It's experimental, it's you know, it's a riot. This is an absolute riot. I love this record. And there's an appearance by Balake Sissoko, the Kora master on this. If that doesn't sell it to you, I don't know what will. This record is absolutely fantastic. The Gritness Acoustronics. There you go. Here is a record from 1975 by a sax player called Alan Brofman, recorded originally recorded for the Indian Navigation record label. Almost impossible to find as an original, but reissued in 2018, featuring Cecil McBee on bass. Is the best known name on this. And interestingly, Alan Brofman has released his second record. So the first one in 1975 and the second one in 2002. It took his time. You know, that's a long hiatus between 2 records, but yes, he's done it. And it's just come out, and the LP's name escapes me, but it looks like this, except that it's white instead of being black. You know, it's very similar to this. I really love this. This is free jazz, but very digestible free jazz. Nothing too, you know, nothing too chaotic. You know, it's organized chaos, I'd say. Almost finished. Been digging this great live date by the Cannonball Adderley Quintet, recorded at the Jazz Workshop in 1959. Real groovy hard bop, you know. I don't think they made bad records, those brothers. I mean, every time I get a Cannonball Adderley record or a Nat Adderley record, I end up falling in love with them, and this is one of the best, really. It's such a great record, on Riverside from 1959. The very first Coltrane record under his own name, just simply named Coltrane, featuring a great lineup of Saib Shihab on sax, Red Garland on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, and Albert Heath on drums. This is a great session, hard bop as well, from the late 50s. Obviously, you're not going to get it's a bit soft for Coltrane, you know, it's not forward thinking, or it's very straight ahead jazz. But I think, you know, I've got about 20 Coltrane records, and having this in my collection gives me a good overview of his progress as a musician, how he started, and, you know, how he evolved from that to Blue Train and Giant Steps, and, you know, My Favorite Things, Love Supreme, Africa Brass, you know, down to like things like Ascension or Interstellar Space or Ohm, you know, you've got these kind of the spectrum of Coltrane, and when you get this, you understand the whole story. You can piece this the whole story together. Really great. And last but not least is just a CD. I've been playing lots recently. It is Lloyd Miller and the Heliocentrics. Lloyd Miller, you know, American musician who was fascinated with the music of Iran, even moved there for a few years. And you know, Oriental jazz was his high watermark in his discography. And teams up with the Heliocentrics, UK jazz band led by Malcolm Cato. And the Heliocentrics, they're sort of a chameleon band. They can fuse with so many, like they made records with Mulatto, and they've managed to just capture the groove of Ethio jazz. And on this this is so good. This is such a great record. Highly recommended. One of the best Heliocentrics records for sure. So I'll stop talking now because it's too much. Blah 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 blah. Shut up, big star. So I hope you enjoyed the installment, and you know, talk to me. That's the whole point of this. Like, just write me some comments and just tell me what you think. You know, you don't need to say it was great or it was terrible, but more like maybe, oh, you know, this record is interesting or that record is interesting. That's very more constructive as a whole. Okay, love you all, guys and girls. And although I doubt that very many girls watch this. I think it's more like a middle-aged guy type of show. This I've got the impression by looking at my analytics. I think that's what I see. So yeah, take care, and until next time.